Thanks for joining us today. This is a pilot, so bear with us and give us some feedback on how you think it went. We're going to try to show you some freezer meal classes, or something that we do at our freezer meal classes by making some freezer meals today. I'm Natasha Ward. I'm a dietitian here and run the community wellness department.
And I'm Sherry Rote, and I am a dietitian here as well.
Some reasons that we think it's a great idea to do freezer meals is because we all live really busy lives, and it's really nice to be able to just throw something in the crock pot that's ready to go. One thing we like to focus on is including some fruits and vegetables, or usually vegetables, but including other parts of the meal besides just the meat. And the reason we want to do this is because we want to make it really quick and easy. Sherry has used a lot of freezer meals as well. She's recovering from an injury, and that made it a little bit easier for her.
Right, it was amazing.
So coming into the busy holiday season, though, we think this might be a great time to put together some freezer meals before things get really busy. So then when you're, working in all these other holiday-related things you have to do, like shopping and making cookies maybe, or whatever it might be, you have some easy, healthy meals ready to go. So I think Sherry is probably going to get us started here. Talk a little bit about other ways to do freezer meals at home, and then she's going to start the first recipe.
All right, so why would some options on how you could maybe do some freezer meals at home yourself is think about maybe a church group or a group of friends. Maybe you want to get together and you want to designate someone that's going to be in charge of getting the recipes out. Okay, so one thing that you could also think about is that I had read, and I thought this was an amazing idea, is that if you get together as a group, perhaps you're making one extra meal each person, and then that could be given to a needy family in Baldwin or Woodville or wherever you are from. So know the foods that everybody likes. That's super important because you don't want to have mushrooms in one of the main entrees if someone dislikes them. So consider even maybe this holiday doing a soup exchange versus a cookie exchange. That would be kind of fun to do. So, and if you are on Pinterest, there's tons of information on Pinterest. So you can think about either people could prepare these meals at home and bring them already ready to go, or you can have them at one person's house. I know Tasha's done that a couple times, had them at her house. We've done a few at some of the local churches as well. So the person needs to have a lot of space so that you can kind of move out. But maybe thinking about some easier meals to start off with that don't have a lot of ingredients would be helpful. So. All right, so the first meal that we're going to demo, and both of these meals are gluten-free and dairy-free, so that's kind of nice, so no worries about any allergies that someone would have. So we're going to do chicken cacciatore. This one is super easy to make and doesn't take much time at all. So when I first went to my first freezer meal, I never thought that we would just be using a freezer bag. But that's what we're going to use. But there are some other things that Tasha's going to talk about too as well.
Yeah, so depending on what you're making, maybe you would want to use, a pan like this. These stack really nice. I know we did do spinach lasagna rolls at a different class, so that worked really well. Otherwise, these are awesome little containers that work really well for soup in particular.
Yeah.
But really anything could be stored in here as well. And then you just put it in the freezer, make sure it's labeled.
So for the chicken cacciatore and for all of our classes, we typically make labels, but you certainly, if you don't have a computer or a printer and you just want to put the information on your freezer bag, that's okay. But putting a date on there is nice, so you kind of know when you made this meal. So, and then the instructions for cooking once you pull it out of the freezer. So you can pull it out the night before, and in the morning before you leave for work, you throw it in your crock pot and it's good to go. So, so the first thing in my chicken cacciatore, it calls for 1 pound of chicken breast. My kitchen has them all ready for me. So I'm gonna, actually I think I might save them for last. So I don't want to get chicken goop everywhere. So I don't know if Rachel Ray would say that, but anyway, we're gonna chop some vegetables. I'm gonna kind of show you some chef ideas on chopping vegetables that makes it a little bit easier. So this is a pepper. So just a green pepper, so you kind of want to go right along the stem, and then you cut all the way through. I don't know if you guys can see that, but then the easy thing to do then is just to take your knife and kind of get the middle and the stem out of there. So kind of cutting along here. And hopefully you have a sharp knife when you're doing this. And then just pull all the extras out. And if you were at home, you would have a sink so you could rinse this and get the little seeds out of there. Don't really have that option. So, but with vegetables, you will always want to be thinking about a leg. So that makes it flat and makes it easier to cut and less likely to cut yourself, which is kind of important. So now I have this pepper in half, so I'm going to put it on the flat side, and then I'm just going to go ahead and see how my tip is just kind of staying on the board. And I'm just using momentum to cut the slices. Okay, then I'm just going to flip them around, and I'm going to cut them into their pieces again.
Another nice thing about freezer meals too is that if you're making them with friends, or even if you come to one of our classes, if you want to keep out certain ingredients that you're not very fond of or add new ones, that's really easy to do. You could also make those pieces larger or smaller if you preferred to.
If I was making these at home, I'm not a huge fan of green peppers, so I would probably go with one of the colored ones. I like them better, but for this recipe it calls for green. So then I'm going to take the other side and I'm going to get the middle out of it. Extra little seeds. Flip it back on its leg again and just do cuts. Again, keeping my tip on the board. Make it nice and easy. Flip it again and do my slices. Being careful not to get my gloves in there. Kind of go loose. Okay, the peppers are done already. I did get my glove a little bit. All right, next item is a zucchini. So again, I took the ends off of the first one, but I'm just going to cut it in half.
Give it legs.
There's its legs, flip it over, and now I'm going to cut them as well. So, and again, in the sizes that you like as a family. I know when we do freezer meals together, Tasha likes teeny tiny onions.
Microscopic.
Yeah. All right, super fast there. So I'm just going to throw these into the bag. All right, ends off the zucchini. I'm going to make a leg again. Flip it over. Okay. Typically, I wouldn't have all my garbage right next to my choppings here. So.
Most of the recipes that we do will serve about 4 to 6, but if you are just cooking for yourself or 2 people at home, you could make these recipes and just split them into smaller containers. Or if you're cooking for more people and want to double them, it's really simple to do as long as you have the ingredients.
Yep. And even sometimes thinking about freezer meals can be either way. You could make a really large batch. So when I prepare chili at home, it's in a great big black pot. So we have our chili, but then there's containers that go into the freezer so it's already cooked. So then all I have to do is pull it out and it's ready when I get home at night to heat up as well. So it doesn't have to just be frozen without being prepared. Unfortunately, the kitchen was out of onions, but I still want to show on this shallot, this is the biggest one I have, how you can cut this really easy too. So the first thing you want to do is keep the end on where the stem was, where it was in the ground, and then you just, again, make a leg. So it might be a little hard to see from here, but we're going to do slices this way, but we're not going to go through to the end. And then you go this way, again, not going through to the end, just short of it.
So first Sherry's knife was parallel to the table, and now it's up and down or perpendicular.
Yeah. And so now I flipped it around, and now I'm going to just make my little slices, or bigger ones if you like bigger ones. And there you go. Then you cut off the end, and it's chopped up, and it's fast, and I'm not crying. So, all right. The next item that I'm going to throw in here is homemade spaghetti sauce. So, and the recipe is included in your packet that you got when you came online. So why would we make homemade spaghetti sauce? Well, there's lots of sugar, there's lots of sodium, and lots of preservatives added to the spaghetti sauce that we buy at the store. But this makes a really large batch, so it'll make the 28 ounces that you need for here, and it'll store a whole other 32 ounces in the refrigerator. Tomatoes are amazing for an antioxidant called lycopene. And lycopene is the red pigment that's in tomatoes and watermelon and pink grapefruit. But in order to absorb lycopene, because that red pigment is tied to the fiber of the tomato, we need to cook it, and it needs to have a little fat in it for us to absorb it better. Recommendations are really trying to get at least like a half a cup of tomato cooked in your diet every day if you can. So tomato juice or puree or tomato paste, even ketchup has lycopene in it. So amazing for us. So what does lycopene do? It helps fight off some of the cancers. It acts as a natural sun protectant for it. It makes our own skin have a higher SPF factor. It can help indirectly with age-related macular degeneration and cataracts by helping us preserve that lutein that's really important for our eyesight. So wonderful for us. But again, if we eat them fresh, we're going to get a lot less than if they're cooked. But fresh tomatoes are really good for us for other reasons too. So, all right, I'm going to throw that spaghetti sauce in here. Forgot to get a spatula. And now I'm going to throw, don't want to waste any of this wonderful lycopene. And this spaghetti sauce, if you make it with fresh tomatoes out of the garden or the farmer's market in the summer, is really amazing. So now last but not least is the chicken breast. So again, you could throw more vegetables in, more spaghetti sauce, more chicken breasts for a bigger family, or you could make it half and put it in 2 separate bags. So, all right, so then the key is to just try to get the air out, mix it up a little bit. I did very bad at getting the air out. And flatten it as much as you can. Doesn't really matter how much mixing you do, because you're going to throw it in the slow cooker and it's going to all get mixed up. So just want to make sure everything is kind of covered. So
some other things you can do, you can see right now it's pretty flat. You're going to want to actually maybe put some newspaper in between each of the bags that you have and underneath on the shelf in the freezer, so that it actually will freeze that way, and then it's easier to store. Otherwise, of course, like we talked about before, you could use some of these other types of containers. And we did talk about labeling. It is super important that you label what it is. I know I've done this many times where I found something in the freezer and I could not figure out what it was. So it's really helpful if you have some type of label on there, even if you just write what it was and what the date was that you made it. Usually we're saying about 6 months out is probably when you should use a freezer meal. Although we know people who might go a little longer than that, it still probably is okay. So I think we're going to go to our next recipe. I'm doing one of my favorite ones, the black bean and turkey stew recipe. This one actually I'm going to make it actually vegetarian today. Or, well, I guess minus the chicken broth. If we had vegetable broth, it'd be vegetarian. But typically this could be a good vegan or vegetarian recipe. But if you don't want it to be that way, you can add different types of meat to it. The reason it says turkey is because we've used turkey sausage in it, for example, or chicken sausage. Or actually I've used some venison sausage that we make ourselves. But you'll want to make sure that the sodium content is pretty low on those. We'd usually recommend going to like a natural or Whole Foods type of store because it's pretty hard to find a good sausage that doesn't have a lot of nitrites and sodium. So to get started, I'm going to pull out my freezer bag. Sherry's going to affix a label for me. And we have black beans. Black beans are awesome. Low sodium black beans as well. Really important that you try to find a low sodium if you're not going to make them yourself from the dried variety, but they do have more low sodium versions out there now, and you'll want to rinse them really, really well. It will help get rid of some of the extra sodium. But typically, yes, dried beans would be even better.
One thing we want to mention about dried beans, though, and I'm a culprit this weekend as I was cleaning out my pantry, is that if you buy them, you don't want to let them sit in your pantry for a really long time, because if you try to cook them, they're never really going to get soft. So, and if you're at the store and they have like a white coating on them, probably will tell you that they're an older bean version.
So we do know it might be more realistic for some people as well, that they might choose to use canned black beans, and so therefore we would say really try to find low sodium or no salt added or organic version, and then rinse it really well. So I just added my baked beans, the equivalent of 3 cans. We just have one here, but it's actually 3 cans. At home, I actually pump this recipe up with more black beans, just to spread it out a little bit more. And then one thing about black beans, they're a great protein option, great for, obviously, for anyone who's vegetarian or vegan. But they have a lot of protein and they have a lot of fiber, as well as, and specifically soluble fiber, which is really good for helping with lowering bad cholesterol, as well as a lot of antioxidants. They actually aren't the bean with the highest amount of antioxidants, that would be kidney beans, but they're still right up there. The next thing I'm going to add is some chopped yellow onions. As Sherry mentioned, onions are not exactly my favorite thing. It's a texture issue, but flavor and all their nutrition properties are so good that I still have to have them. They have a lot of antioxidants as well. The next thing that I'm going to add is my celery. We have 1 cup of sliced celery. The nice thing about sliced celery and some of these other veggies, if you decide to chop up a whole bunch in one day, or I use my food processor sometimes to do that, you could freeze each one of these in individual babies and use them later too, if you have extra. So the next one I'm going to put in is my 1 cup chopped red pepper. Of course, chopped the lovely way that Sherry just showed us. Just make sure everybody's on mute at their homes. Yeah, if you need to go to mute, just look on the right side. You'll be able to see the microphone as well as your video if you don't want us to see your lovely face. The next thing is 4 cloves of garlic. These are already minced, so this is the equivalent of about 2 teaspoons of garlic. I'm going to toss in there. And then I already measured out my spices, so I have 1½ teaspoons of oregano leaves, 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper, and 3/4 teaspoon of ground coriander. Now, my family really likes food a little bit spicier, so sometimes we might ramp up the red pepper a little bit or add some other kind of hot peppers. Sherry's family prefers it a little less spicy, so then you might change that, and that's okay. I would say this recipe, the way it is, has maybe just a slight bite, but not very much. Yeah, much more Sherry's preference. So put those in, and then we're just going to mix it up. So actually, if you were going to add some type of meat, oh, I forgot my broth. Whoops, that's kind of important. So I do have a 1.5 cups of low sodium chicken broth here. Like I said, if you wanted this to actually be vegetarian or vegan, you could get vegetable broth. This one is an organic, free-range, low sodium version. Specifically, the brand is Pacific. But there are a lot of other options out there. Rachel Ray and Kitchen Basics all have some low sodium versions. The thing is not all low sodiums are created equal, so you want to really look at what the sodium content is. And I would say definitely less than at least 200 is kind of what we would maybe be looking for. I might need something to get the rest of that in there.
Are you okay with that? Or?
Sure. We didn't touch chicken, so we're gonna share our spatula. So then I'm just gonna put this in here. So you're actually, if you're going to add meat later, you're not gonna add it now anyway. This is what goes in the freezer itself, and then later on, if you did want some type of meat, you're gonna add that to the slow cooker towards the end. We'll cook it first and then add it to the slow cooker. So like Sherry did, I'm going to try to get as much air out as I can. If you're not confident, I would really recommend getting really good freezer bags, but if you're not super confident in the ones you have, you will definitely want to double bag them. So I'm going to mush this down and get it really flat. And you can see it's ready to go.
So I was going to share a few tips that might help make Thanksgiving a little bit easier. I don't know how many of you out there are going to be cooking, but I have a great friend who is a chef, and so she gave some tips that I thought might be helpful. So roasting vegetables, carrots, or any root vegetables, you actually the night before can cook them up till about 3/4 done. So about 30 minutes, she said, and then finish them off in the oven for that last 15 minutes so that you're not, delegating your oven to the vegetables when you need it for everything else. So same with any greens that you might be going to prepare, you can prepare them like 3/4 of the way. So keeping flavored vinegars near the stove so you're not always reaching for the salt. Acid enhances flavors of food, as does lemon and lime. So, and actually to maximize the fresh lemon and lime that you might be using, if you grab that lemon or lime and you just roll it on the table for a while, it's going to open up that juice. Also in the microwave, like 10 to 15 seconds is also going to get that juice more available. So we had our garlic already done for us, but if you don't want to get the smell on your hands or on your board or your knife, you could put it in a small bag, and then you could, press the bottom of your, if you're just trying to do that smashed garlic, I guess I'm not probably saying the right way, but that way your cutting board and your knife and you won't smell like garlic. So then she shared a thing about mashed potatoes. She said most people prepare mashed potatoes incorrectly. So what you want to do is cut them all in about the same size, and then you want to put them in cold water, and then you want to start slowly getting them to a simmer. And once the simmer gets up there, add your salt and your pepper, your garlic, whatever you want, but never bring your potatoes to a boil. Then in the meantime, you want to heat your milk and your butter so that it's warm. You rinse your potatoes when they're finished, you mash them, then you throw in your warm butter and milk, and then you mash them again, and you'll get these wonderful creamy mashed potatoes that won't be all full of the starches, won't come to the top, and they'll be really smooth, and you won't need to add sour cream or cream cheese in order to make them smooth and creamy.
So we only have a few minutes left, so maybe we'll want to see if there's any questions. But before we open it up for questions, we do want to let you know that we actually are having another freezer meal class here at the Medical Center on Wednesday, December 16th at 5 o'clock. You do need to pre-register, and the classes do tend to fill up pretty quickly. We usually will prepare 2 meals very similar to what we have here, although I can't remember the recipes.
Autumn stew, autumn chicken stew, and black bean taco soup.
Yep, okay, so 2 different really, really tasty recipes. And that's $20. Then we also usually have some type of appetizer type snack for you to try. We try to do something that's always a little bit different, just so you can try something new. So register online, or you can call, I think the main number, 715-684-3311, Sherry's extension 194, and get started. So we'll just see if there's any questions. You will have to unmute yourselves, and we of course would love to see your face, so you could put your video on as well. Just wait a minute and see if anyone's going to join us. Okay, maybe no questions this time. There is a chat option as well. If for some reason you didn't get the recipes, I think they were sent out by email, but if you for some reason didn't get them or have any trouble or questions, just respond back to was it the marketing email that it would have come from, their marketing email account, and they'll get the questions to us. So thank you very much for joining us today. We'd love to hear your feedback on our first virtual freezer meal class.
It looks like somebody might be having a question.
Oh, okay, we might have a question.
I just hear, why don't we just give it a second? There's a little bit of a lag. Linda, did you have a question?
Are there certain areas where you can find the recipes for other freezer meals?
Yes, Pinterest is a great place for recipes, freezer meal recipes. Is that what you're looking for? Just different options?
For you.
Or are you looking for ours specifically?
We have other recipes on our website.
We have some on our website too. Most of the freezer meal classes we've done in the past, the recipes are actually on our website. They're under wellness.
Yep, healthybaldwin.org.
Healthybaldwin.org.
Under the Be Well initiative.
Under the Be Well initiative. So those are the ones that we've actually made. I would highly recommend, if you're going to have a group come to your home, or if you're going to try to set something up, that you do try them in advance. We've had maybe a couple that didn't work out as well as we'd hoped, but most of them actually work out pretty well. You can freeze just about anything if there's a liquid, especially in the recipe.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Any other questions? Okay. We might have one more. Nope, okay. I think we'll wrap it up then. Our time is out. So happy Thanksgiving, and thanks for joining us.
Have a great afternoon.